Welcome back to another episode of the college football segment here on Fullbacks Up Sports. It's your host, Hector Rodriguez. I'm just here with Mikey today. That's the only person I'm with today. Sheehan and Drew were not able to make it. Mikey, how are you feeling?
Feeling good, man. I'm excited. College football started. I can't wait to keep talking about these guys, and this is going to be an interesting week as well.
Yep, week one of Power 5 football started. There's still no SEC play yet. That will come up next week. But nonetheless, we had big boy football played this weekend, and another Power 5 conference will be returning back to the gridiron, as earlier this week, the Big Ten announced that they will be back with football. Probably won't be back for another month. I think October 23rd is the date that they will kick off their season. But, ever since they canceled, a lot of people, they began a lot of backlash, and the first week went pretty well. Not a whole lot of cases. Everyone's been able to be pretty healthy. So I think the Big Ten realized, okay, maybe we panicked and jumped the gun while these guys could actually play. So, Mikey, let's just start it off. How's it feel to have Big Ten football back?
Finally, another big conference in. It's just good for the sport. I mean, you have Ohio State, you have that type of team. You got to put those guys in there. Nebraska's another team that's dying to play. Again, you're taking away almost like the futures of these kids by canceling out a season. Like, let these guys play. Let the rules and all the regulations and everything like that so far for everybody else has been working. If I'm not mistaken, Miami hasn't gotten a positive test in about 2 months. So, these rules are working. These tests are working. Get these on the field. Let them play, because you never know. I've seen some rumors. I don't know how truthful they are, but a lot of people might transfer if they don't play. So get these guys on the field, more competition, and it's going to make the playoffs even better.
Yeah. I mean, you are already seeing guys from within their conference that were draft eligible type players already declared for the draft. Earlier this week, arguably the top corner in the draft, Sean Wade, out of Trinity Catholic in Florida, he opted out, and that's a guy that I've seen him projected as a top 10 pick. He's out of Ohio State. Michigan lost their top offensive tackle, Mayfield. He's a projected mid to late first round pick. And Micah Parsons, the big linebacker out of Penn State, opted out, but that was a while ago. Same thing with the Mayfield kid. But yeah, you started seeing some of these guys leaving, and I think Big Ten realized, okay, we're in trouble if we don't, actually play, because I think I always knew during the summer that coronavirus cases were going to be to a minimal. The real test was once these kids started getting on campus. And once those kids started getting on campus, you did see a little bit of a spike, like at the University of Florida. I think they have 6 kids out right now with COVID or COVID tracing. But they've already even come back with some of the positive tests that have come back. They're actually negative. So that's already a good sign for the Gators. So let's talk about it. The Gators did not play week one in the college football season. However, we did have some Power 3 football, I should really say. It was the ACC played a couple games, and so did the Big 12. The first game of the season was Miami versus UAB. Miami was able to pull off the upset, beat them Blazers at home. Mikey was in attendance. So, Mikey, I actually have it's a 2-part question. First question was, how was it at the stadium? Because, it's a little bit more emptier than usual. Miami has a hard time filling out the stadium, but this was a big difference. There was only 5,000 people in the crowd. How weird was that, especially for a season opener?
I love how you throw in the little subtle jabs at me. I love it. Well,
that's what makes this interesting.
Always. What makes just the fans in the stands and just the atmosphere and being out there. I wanted to go for the first game, not only to check out the team, but also check out how they were doing it. Let me tell you, the first things first. Hard Rock Stadium right now, in my opinion, is probably more safer than a lot of hospitals out there in this world. So, the fact that you're sitting down and you probably get to sit in groups of around 4 or 5. My group was about 8 people going. We had one part of the group sit to the right, and there was about 4 seats covered up, and then the other group of 5, or 4, I'm sorry, sitting together as well, and then the rest of the row was covered up. Security was up and down the stands, making sure everybody had their masks. So, there wasn't a lot of, I guess, I don't want to say not fun, but you have to be safe, especially in this type of environment. That being said, the whole tailgate situation, everybody loves to tailgate. You can't do that. Everything is social distance. You have to make sure that you're doing all of that stuff. Like, I actually got off the car with a beer, and the guy was like, "You got to go back into your car. You can't be out here with a beer." I'm like, "Okay, my bad." So I had to throw that, drink it real quick, and throw it in the back. So, but other than that, I mean, as far as game-wise, whether you're at home or away, you're missing a big part of the home field event. There was I think it was only allowed like maybe 15,000 people, and maybe 8,000 people showed up. It wasn't that many people. We didn't sell out that game. I mean, by all means, well, if you're a season ticket holder like myself, it's one of those deals like, do you want to go to these games? It's not that type of season. You want to roll over everything and all that. So, I mean, I understand. It's not the same type of atmosphere as any other college game.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about the actual game. For 3 quarters, it was a very tight ball game. It was after the fourth, heading to the fourth quarter, it was only a 3-point game. It was a feel-good game. Miami was up, but then they just started out-athleting UAB. Ended up, barely covering the spread. The final score was 31-14. But it to be honest with you, Miami should not be winning these types of games. They shouldn't be like winning by this amount. They should be winning by more if they are really the University of Miami. But Mikey, you're the Miami fan, so hype up your team.
I mean, by all means, the one thing that I said the last episode was that you can't take this team lightly. They are a lower tier team, but they do bring it when, they play against anybody, and they play up to a competition if they can. But the main thing I said, it was going to be at the beginning. It's a new offense, basically a new team with Miami. We are returning a whole bunch of people, but at the end of the day, just the offense and the defense, and we're trying to get everything, be cohesive. And one of the main things that I wanted to actually bring out was the defensive play. Our front 7 was great. I love the way our defensive line was guarded. We hurried the quarterback many times. We only got 1 sack that game, but we were in the backfield plenty of times. We had 6 tackles for loss. Jalen Phillips came back with a vengeance. I love the way he plays. Roche had that one. He was always in the backfield as well. We didn't get to the quarterback, but we disrupted a lot of plays. Now, moving on from the good things, when we're talking about DB plays, Al Blades did his thing, did well. But on that other side, DJ Ivy, that's somebody that they were picking on literally all game. If I'm not mistaken, the wide receiver that he was covering all game had about 120 yards. It wasn't something that you like to see, especially against a team like UAB. I don't want to blame anything on the safeties to try to help them out. At the end of the day, if you're a 4-star corner that we picked up and you're supposed to be starting on Miami defense, you have to make sure that you stop those guys, especially on this type of team. So that's going to translate on how, I guess, we go on throughout the season, especially now with Christian Williams. He actually opted into the transfer portal. That's one less cornerback that we have. And he's actually a highly touted recruit that we got from last year. Sophomore, he only had 8 snaps last game. I didn't see anything too crazy when he was on the field, but I'm sure the kid wanted to be out there on the field and play a lot more, especially after seeing DJ Ivy play. But, the coaches obviously see something that we don't. Hopefully the man's defense or the man's coverage, he actually picks it up, because he's going to have a long day against Tutu Atwell next week against Louisville. But, I mean, as far as the defense offensively, I don't think Rashi actually opened up the playbook for us. Miami ran the ball. It was a lot of read options. I think there was a lot of times that if King actually kept the ball from the read option, there was a lot of space open, and he could have ran it for 20 yards. I mean, you've seen a couple of just flashes of him breaking out right after halftime. He broke out like a 40-yard run. The man can play, and I'm so glad that we finally have a quarterback that runs the ball like that. Because if it was last year and we had Jaron Williams or we had Cozy Perry, that would have been easily a sack, and the play wouldn't have never got developed. So Offense, you just had a little bit of a taste of what Miami can do on offense. Our wide receivers need to get open a lot better, but that just comes with the type of play calling that we're going to have. I'm sure we're going to open up the playbook next week.
So yeah, when I watched the game, I don't have the ACC network at my house, so I was actually watching. I was at Miller's Ale House right there in Miami Lakes, and I was watching with my girlfriend. I was watching the Miami Hurricanes and also the Kansas City Chiefs playing at the same time. And one thing I noticed was, man, yeah, King can run the ball. He's good, he's pretty good running the ball, but he did not show me anything with the arm. And it looked like Miami early in the game just tried to take the top off the defense, just like, hey, let's just beat him with deep balls. Let's just, if we're not going to open up the playbook, if we're going to throw it, let's take a shot downfield. And he just wasn't able to. The ball wasn't coming out of his hands. Well, it looked like it was hard for him to throw the deep ball. And it looks like for him, like anything from past 10 to 12 yards can be an issue. So with that being the case, and also him being a running quarterback, if teams start noticing that, I think the safeties are going to start getting closer to the line of scrimmage. So that way they know, hey, look, they can't beat them upstairs. And also your receivers are having a hard time creating separation. And against a defense, a secondary like that, you're going to be playing – that's probably going to be one of the worst secondaries you're going to be playing all year. If you're having a hard time creating separation against those guys, it's going to be even more difficult when you play defenses like North Carolina and Clemson. I mean, good luck. They might literally be like white on rice on you the entire game because it just wasn't looking good. The receivers who have been a disappointment for the Miami the past few years, guys like Mark Pope had high expectations. He hasn't lived up to the hype. In fact, Pope dropped buffed the punt that gave UAB the first point in the game. Gave him a short field, very similar to that Florida-Miami game last year when Jeff Thomas muffed the punt. Next thing you know, Florida gets in the end zone, and it's a ball game. So, yeah, I wasn't really impressed with Miami offensively. Defensively, I think corners is weak. Defensive line, I think they just did what they had to do. And your best defensive player is not Quincy Rhodes. I think it's Bubba at safety. I think Bubba's the better. Bubba Bolden's a little bit better. At least Miami got the point because there's another in-state school by the name of the Florida State Seminoles that not only lost, but lost in an embarrassing fashion. They lost to the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets as Mr. Jeff Sims. For those of you who do not know who Jeff Sims is the starting quarterback for Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech, he's a freshman out of Jacksonville, Florida, and was originally committed to Florida State. And the reason why he ended up at Georgia Tech instead of Florida State was because Mike Norvell decided that literally as soon as he got on the job, he's like, I don't want Jeff Sims as my quarterback. So he pretty much pulled the scholarship, told him, hey, if you sign with us, you're not going to play. I suggest you go somewhere else. And they got another kid, I think out of Arizona, like Shelba Purdy, who was a higher ranked recruit, but Jeff Sims is a better athlete, and Jeff Sims is actually healthy. Purdy is not. And Jeff Sims, I think, had a chip on his shoulder that game, and he played well, but he did make some freshman mistakes. There was 2 interceptions to Asante Samuel Jr. that, my 5-year-old cousin could have picked off. It's not like he had a big game. They pretty much just handed him the ball twice. But, yeah, it was an ugly showing for Florida State. I know Sebastian's listening right now. It's killing him right now. Yeah.
I can't wait.
Yeah. Yeah, it just wasn't looking good. Marvin Wilson does not look like a first-round talent. Tamarion Terry was dropping, easy catches that, you and me could probably catch. It was just an ugly showing for Florida State. They were hoping with Mike Norvell, he was going to come in and bring this excitement. And in the scripted plays, they did. The scripted plays, they looked great. All of a sudden, rain delay comes, and they come back on the field, and they are completely flat. I mean, Mikey, first off, I'm pretty sure you watched the game, but what did you take away from that Florida State versus Georgia Tech game?
I mean, first of all, I want to point out that I picked that upset. I picked
You did?
to win. Georgia Tech with a new revamped offense. They're not running that wing T, that read option, triple option play anymore. It's going to take some time for them to adjust to it. Jeff Sims, kudos for them to putting Jeff Sims in because, like you said, he had a chip on his shoulder. He wanted to beat the team that actually literally took away his scholarship. So he went in there, had some freshman mistakes, that you just pointed out, Hector, but I mean, at the end of the day, he came out with the win. You know, he threw for 277, and he ran for 64 yards. He made plays happen. He scored a touchdown. He had to do what he had to do in order to make the team win. Overall, the game was sloppy. You know, there was a lot of things going on, whether it was the field, honestly.
The field goals, 3 block kicks by Florida State. I mean, there's guys, Georgia Tech had guys blocking on field goal that were about the size, about your size or my size. Like they look like they do not belong on that field. And you have these much bigger and stronger guys at Florida State that are pretty much just like tossing them to the side and just like blocking it with their elbows. They're not even blocking it with their fingertips. They're literally blocking it almost as bad as Bam blocked Tatum the other day. But I mean, it was
everything that the little things they did what they needed to do to win that game, but they couldn't come up. And it's just like I said, I don't like FSU this year. They're just, I don't know what it is. Maybe there's the communication when it comes to the coach, to Nova and FSU. Maybe there's not too much agreement, or maybe it's just the play on the field that they're not getting it done. But it'd be a tough season for FSU, especially starting off with the year against with a loss against Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and that's a team that's Georgia Tech is not a juggernaut in the ACC. They're, in fact, arguably going into this year, a lot of people thought they were the worst team in the ACC.
Yep.
And with that being said, they have a bye week this week, but when you look at their schedule, it doesn't favor them. This was supposed to be one of their wins, and they didn't get it. Mm-hmm. Outside of the Jacksonville State game, is there like a guarantee win for Florida State, or is it going to be like close games, or just you're getting blown out the rest of the way?
I mean, judging by how FSU played last game, it's going to be a lot of close games, and it's going to end up having to come down to Blackman actually trying to win the game for them. It all comes down. They have weapons. They got Terry. That's scary Terry. They got the running back at the end of the day. Yeah, they don't have Cam Akers anymore, but these guys produce talent. They're FSU at the end of the day. They just need to come together as a team and actually win the ball game. That's plain and simple. That's all where it comes down to.
Yeah, they might.
The defense is good too. They have the weapons there on defense as well.
I actually don't see it on defense. I mean, Marvin Wilson's supposed to be this top defensive tackle, and he didn't look like it against a pretty small offensive line. They have no pass rushing, and that was their biggest question mark, and the pass rush was not there. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was just – I think, when you look at the recruiting classes, they're usually a top 15 class. Georgia Tech's nowhere near them. Yep. The problem is the past few years, the development of these players have been horseshit. Yeah. I mean, Florida State looks small. James Blackman, I swear to God, he looks thinner now than when he did when he arrived at Florida State. He doesn't look – exactly. And, I give it to him because he's a tough kid with a good arm. I think the talent's there. But the lack of development is what's killing this kid. And then again, if Tamarion Terry catches a pass or two, all of a sudden those numbers look a lot better. And Florida State probably wins instead of we're talking about them potentially being the worst team in the conference because of how bad they were playing. And I know right now, just daggers are going. It's a poor Sebastian right now. He's in pain. He's probably skipped all of this because it hurts. It hurts because it's the truth. And he knows it at this point. But let's stop harping on Florida State. I mean, they're hearing enough from their side. But let's talk about the other games. Quickly go over the other games. UNC got their first win of the season. They went up and played against who did they play against?
Syracuse.
Syracuse, yeah, 31-6. It wasn't the type of game that I expect out of North Carolina. They looked a little flat in the beginning, but turned around the second half. Do you think it has more to do with that they're not as good as advertised, or was it just it's the first game, they're going to get a little sloppy, and the second half is really who they're going to beat the rest of the season?
I mean, as a Miami fan, you always want to say they're not as good as advertised, but listen, it's the first game. I thought when we were picking this game that this was going to be a tough game, at least in the beginning. The score doesn't really show what the game was about because they really scored at 21 points, if I'm not mistaken, in the fourth quarter. So, I mean, the whole game, it was a close game. And Sam Howell threw 2 interceptions. Yeah, he racked up the yards when it came to passing yards, but he didn't look comfortable. But again, I think this is just the first game jitters. When that offense and that, in my opinion, I think the defense actually held them up, only allowed 6 points at the end of the day. And if I'm not mistaken, they allowed somewhat around 70 yards rushing. So they did a hell of a job when it came down to dropping Syracuse. But I think, just like you said, I think they are as good as advertised. It's just one of those things. First game, they gotta sweep it out. They ended up figuring it out at the end of the game. But with a lot of people watching, I can imagine a lot of people are probably saying, "What the hell's going on with UNC? They're supposed to be 10 times better than what they're doing." So that was my
Yeah,
take on it.
yeah. UNC actually only allowed 68 yards, so you were pretty close. The other upset of the week, Louisiana Lafayette upsetting number 23 Iowa State, and not just upsetting them, but they beat them pretty easily. They won. Louisiana Lafayette wins 31-14. Iowa State does not look good whatsoever. They really weren't able to throw the ball that well. Their top runner had 20 carries for 103 yards for the score, but the passing game was not great. I mean, 16 for 35, 145 yards, and an interception. Congrats to Louisiana, to the Raging Cajun. Mike, you were able to catch this game, and what
I
did you
saw
think?
a little bit of that game because it was the first one that was playing, and I saw it down by about 2 touchdowns this time. I was like, all right, hold on. They're playing Iowa State. They're going to come back. I'll come back to that game because I wanted to end up watching the UNC game at the time. And then I noticed that they ended up losing. And, I want to keep saying that it's just the first game, but, you're a high-touted team. You're supposed to win these games. So that might be some type of little thing. But then again, it is college football. These type of games happen, and they might bounce back from this. This is their only blemish on their schedule, and they end up just winning everything. So
All right, so here's
I take
another
from it.
game. Okay, so here's another game that was close to an upset. Drew was probably sweating it out at halftime, but Notre Dame was able to knock off the Duke Blue Devils. They won the game 27-13. I don't remember what the spread was, but I know they definitely didn't cover it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Notre Dame looked a little shaky. Ian Book didn't look like the Heisman Trophy candidate that Drew was saying a week ago. I watched a little bit of this game, and you could kind of see the faces of the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, that they were like, what's going on here? I thought we were supposed to win this game pretty easily. Yeah, they got a little nervous, but at the end of the day, they were able to get the win. Did you catch any of the game, Mikey?
A little bit. Don't underestimate Duke. We said it last week. I mean, they're a team that always give up a good fight. Like you said, it was 7-13. Duke's quarterback Chase, he threw for about 260. He didn't have a touchdown on the throwing the ball. He did run for a touchdown, but that just kind of goes to show you how the Notre Dame's defense was a little bit shaky against that Duke's offense. Again, they didn't allow a touchdown to the Duke offense besides that rushing touchdown. So there is some good to take out of it. But at the end of the day, Notre Dame, they're Notre Dame at the end of the day. They should have won that game easily. They should have covered the spread. Like we said, I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I can think right, it was about 3 touchdowns that they were supposed to win from, or a little bit more.
I think it was a little bit more. But, yeah, actually, that quarterback over there at Duke, that's Chase Bryce. He used to be at Clemson. Remember the first game that Trevor Lawrence had? He gets out with a concussion at halftime. He comes in the second half and leads them to victory. So, I mean, look, they have a pretty decent quarterback, but I don't think the talent around the kid is any good. So I think that's going to be his demise. It's just the people that's around him is not good. So not many more games to talk about. We're going to just quickly go through these next 3 games. Oklahoma slaughters Missouri State 48-0. Spencer Rattler looked very good. Clemson defeats Wake Forest 37-13. It would have been worse, but it could have been a lot uglier. But Clemson pulled their starters pretty early in the game. They knew this game was in the bag. Give Trevor Lawrence a little bit of rest and don't show too much of your offense, especially to a team that, you really don't need to. You could have the most vanilla playbook. And then the last one was Texas versus UTEP, and UTEP probably didn't play that game. They lost 59-3. I hope they at least got some money for that game because
hopefully
I wouldn't want to get my ass whooped like that for free. We're going to switch on over to week 2/week 3 of the college football season. There are some games canceled. There are some top 25 games actually canceled. Virginia versus Virginia Tech is postponed with BYU versus Army, Charlotte versus UNC, and Houston versus Memphis. All those games are postponed due to COVID
Mm-hmm.
19 reasons. So we're going to jump into the first game we're actually going to talk about. It's going to be Syracuse versus number 25 Pitt. So Pitt is a 21.5 point favorite against the Orange. Mikey, what do you think? Are you going to
I'm
take
taking Pitt.
Syracuse?
I'm taking Pitt for this game. They're not going to cover. It's going to be a low-scoring game. Obviously, it's going to be their first game as well. Syracuse showed a lot of grit. They showed a lot of good defense against a team that was inferior to them. You know what I mean? So, or at least supposed to be inferior to them. So I'm taking Pitt, but it is going to be a lot closer game than you see on paper.
I agree. I think Pitt does win, but 21.5 might be a little too much. Pitt's defense blind is very good, so I think Syracuse is going to have hard time, running the ball, and then, their quarterback's probably going to be uncomfortable all day. The next game we will be discussing will be Boston College versus the Duke Blue Devils. That one is also at 12 o'clock. That one is on – what channel is that? Oh, that's on ESPN3, so you're going to have to watch on your laptop.
I thought you were going to say ESPN the Ocho. I was about to say.
It's pretty much the same thing. So Duke is a 5.5-point favorite over Boston College. Who are you going to take? You're going to take Duke or you're going to take BC?
We just spoke about him. I think Chase is going to have a good game. Boston College, again, another team that's going to have their first game of the season. I'm taking Duke. And a rather close game, too. That's going to be another one. So I'll take the points with him with Duke.
Yeah, I'd probably go with Duke. Actually, Pitt already played a game this year.
They did? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
they played already. Let's see who they played against. They probably didn't play anybody like that big. Yeah, they played Austin Peay.
Okay.
Austin Peay State, and they won 55-0. That's what you used to do against a team like that. Just beat them to the ground.
They didn't disappoint.
No. They absolutely delivered. The next game will be the USF Bulls against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. USF got their first win of the season against the Citadel. If you watch that failed punt that was returned for a touchdown for absolutely 0 yards, that was terrific. Somebody is looking right behind you. You have somebody at your door.
That's my dog. Me or my parents' house.
Yeah.
So at least with that game, it's going to be a comeback game. I think Notre Dame's going to come out. USF, isn't a team that you want to mess around with, but I think Notre Dame is just too high-powered when it comes to being on the field with them.
Do you think they're favored by 26 points, the Irish? Do you think they cover, or do you think USF keeps it a little bit under?
They're going to keep it a little bit under.
Okay. Next game on ABC at 3:30. It will be the UCF Golden Knights versus the upset, the 1-0 Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. This will be UCF's first game of the season. I'm personally going with UCF, and the spread is only 7.5, which I find a little surprising. I think UCF beats them by like 2 to 3 touchdowns. What do you think, Mikey?
I'm agreeing with you. I know Georgia Tech played a hell of a game against FSU, but they were very sloppy. And, again, Sims, I don't know how he's going to play or maybe come back. Maybe he plays a little better with a game under his belt. But I think UCF takes this game and they take it easily.
Sounds good. So, the final game, College Game Day. Number 17, Miami versus number 18, Louisville Cardinals on ABC. The Miami Hurricanes and the Louisville Cardinals. At Louisville is a 2.5 favorite as we speak.
Mm-hmm.
Mikey, I don't even need to ask you who you're going to pick. Why do you think Miami's going to win?
Listen, it's all going to come down to how much can we get to the backfield? How many times can we get to Malik, and how can we disrupt these? Again, I'm taking a look at last year's game where Nkosi threw 6 touchdowns. It's the same exact team. The one thing that Louisville needs to take advantage of, the fact that we're weak cornered. They have tremendous weapons when it comes to wide receivers. They have the speed, and they know how to use it. Tutu Atwell is one of the best guys that I've seen on the field when it comes to being on speed and just being a playmaker when it comes to Louisville. So if they line him up with one of our defensive backs, he can probably eat all game. So that's one of these things that Blake Baker needs to literally look into, make sure that he has a coach with him. I'm going to say Miami because I am that Miami fan. I'm going to say Miami. It is going to be a close game, but this game this year at least last year, it's the same exact team. So in my opinion, we have a better a better defensive line than we had last year coming into this game. So I'm taking Miami. We're going to win by 2 touchdowns. De'Aaron King, in my opinion, is going to run all over them, besides the fact that Lashley is literally going to open up the playbook for these guys, and we're going to throw the ball a lot better, and it's probably for a lot more yards than the 144 that he put up against UAB.
All right, so I've been thinking about this game a little bit. This is a interesting game because I really don't see, like when I watch Louisville, I don't see them. They're not that big of a team. Like they look pretty small, but they're fast. They have a lot of speed, and there were some plays in the UAB, like a lot of like very short passes that UAB was throwing that they were picking up 5 to 7 yards. However, knowing that they weren't that fast, if you have guys like Fitzpatrick from Louisville or Tutu, instead of that 5 to 7, it's going to be 15 to 20, and it's like very easy passes that your high school quarterback can complete, and
it's just the yards after catch with them, man. You got,
and that's the problem. And that's the problem with Miami, and especially that their corners were struggling against UAB guys. I'm looking at them like, can they keep up with the speed of Louisville? The question, I think this game is going to be won within the trenches, in my opinion. And the reason why is because, Miami should have better athletes than Louisville on the offensive side. But I look at Louisville's, playmakers, and I think they're a little bit more athletic, and they're probably more experienced than some of these Miami guys. They're an older group. They're probably smarter. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. The over-under is 64.5. I think that could potentially hit. It should be a high-scoring game. Something in me tells me that Louisville is going to give Miami a lot of problems because they're just so much faster than them. And they're going to make De'Aaron King throw the ball. It's going to be to a point that they might not get a lot of sacks, but they're going to keep King in the pocket. And they're going to say, hey, throw against me. So I don't see Miami receivers having a big day. I think you're going to have to focus on your tight ends. I think Brevin Jordan and Will Mallory needs to step up. But something inside tells me that this is not a game that Miami wins. I'm going to go with the Louisville Cardinals. I think they are the more explosive offense. And I think in a shootout, which is what I expect this game to be, I like Louisville's chances shooting them out. Another thing Miami needs to do, in order to prevent a shootout, run the ball well. Yeah, they need to control the clock. If they can't do that, if for some reason, if they're having a better day, your offensive line is not having a good day, and they're shutting down the run, and that includes shutting down De'Aaron King or containing him at least. I think that's not a recipe for victory for the Canes. All right, so with that is our final topic of the day of the episode. Mikey, do you have any final thoughts? Any final things you want to get out there?
I'm so happy that Big Ten is finally in there, just to have that extra element, just to have that, even though it's probably going to be 8 games with them, but it's just an extra set of teams that we get to watch every Saturday, even though we had to wait a month for it. But college football is finally back, man. We got 1 week under our belt. I can't wait to watch the rest.
Yeah, for me, it's pretty simple. I can't wait for the SEC football to come back. I mean, there was a lot of bad football this past weekend. I mean, there's a lot of ugliness. I think the SEC team will actually benefit the 2 weeks because it gives them more time to practice and prepare. I think there's going to be some tackling issues because, you're not tackling your own teammates unless in the scrimmage you're just tackling this little rolling thing. So it's a lot easier to bring down. But I think SEC football is going to be. I mean, look, they're the best conference in the nation, and you're also just going to get those 2 weeks. They're going to be a little more prepared. Next episode, we're going to be featuring a lot more games because you're going to have games like Florida and Ole Miss, that should be a fun one. The first game under Lane Kiffin, and they're going to go up against the top 5 team in the Florida Gators. You got Alabama, you got Georgia playing, you got LSU, the defending national championships. So I think week 3 is going to be very exciting for college football fans because some of the top dogs in this country. I mean, look, if you look at the national rankings, there's some teams that are in the top 5 that haven't even played a snap yet. So
Yep.
Top 5, top 10 that haven't even played a snap yet. So that should be exciting. With that, that is the show. Thank you all for listening. Have a great day and continue to wear your mask.
See you later, guys.